The sinking of the Titanic. What really happened on that fateful night? On the night of April 14th, 1912, the world's most famous maritime tragedy unfolded in the icy waters of the North Atlantic. The RMS Titanic, a British passenger liner hailed as the unsinkable ship, struck an iceberg on its maiden voyage from Southampton to New York City. Over 1,500 lives were lost, and the event became one of the most devastating disasters in history. But beyond the simple facts of its sinking lies a tale of human triumph, error, and tragedy, all wrapped up in the stories of those who were aboard the ill-fated ship. The Titanic, a floating palace. The RMS Titanic was the second of 3 Olympic-class ocean liners built by the White Star Line. At the time of her launch, she was the largest ship ever made, measuring 882 feet in length and weighing over 46,000 tons. Titanic was a marvel of modern engineering, boasting the most luxurious accommodations of the time, and she was designed to transport passengers across the Atlantic in unprecedented comfort. Her first-class passengers included some of the wealthiest people of the day, such as John Jacob Astor IV, Isidor Straus, and Benjamin Guggenheim. The ship's design incorporated advanced safety features, such as watertight compartments and remotely operated watertight doors, which contributed to her reputation as unsinkable. However, a critical flaw in her design was the number of lifeboats. Although she was equipped with 20 lifeboats, capable of holding only 1,178 people, Titanic could carry over 2,200 passengers and crew. Regulations at the time did not require enough lifeboats for everyone on board, as it was believed that such a well-built ship could survive long enough for a rescue. The maiden voyage and iceberg warnings. The Titanic set sail from Southampton on April 10, 1912, stopping at Cherbourg, France and Queenstown, now Cobh, Ireland, before beginning her journey across the Atlantic. She carried a mixed group of passengers, from first-class elites to third-class immigrants, hoping to start new lives in America. The weather was calm, and the journey proceeded without incident for the first few days. However, as the Titanic steamed into colder waters, warnings of icebergs in the area began to come in from other ships. Throughout April 14th, at least 6 iceberg warnings were received by the Titanic's wireless operators, but the ship continued at nearly full speed. The decision to maintain speed was made partly out of confidence in the ship's design and partly out of a desire to reach New York ahead of schedule. The collision. At approximately 11:40 p.m. on April 14th, Frederick Fleet, a lookout in the Titanic's crow's nest, spotted an iceberg directly ahead of the ship. He rang the bell and telephoned the bridge to report the danger. First Officer William Murdoch immediately ordered the ship to turn hard a starboard and the engines to be reversed, but the massive vessel could not turn quickly enough. The iceberg scraped along the starboard side of the ship, causing damage below the waterline. The iceberg didn't rip a gaping hole in the Titanic's hull as often imagined. Instead, it punctured a series of small holes along the side, rupturing 5 of the ship's watertight compartments. Titanic was designed to stay afloat with up to 4 flooded compartments, but with 5 compromised, it became clear that the ship was doomed. The evacuation and chaos. At 12:05 a.m., Captain Edward Smith gave the order to begin evacuating the ship. However, the lifeboat situation quickly became a major problem. Many passengers were reluctant to leave the perceived safety of the unsinkable Titanic, and the crew, untrained in evacuation procedures, launched several lifeboats far below capacity. The first lifeboat to leave, Lifeboat 7, held only 28 people, though it could carry 65. In total, more than half of the lifeboats were launched only partially filled. Women and children were given priority, but this policy was not consistently enforced, especially in the lower decks. Many third-class passengers, largely immigrants, were trapped below, unable to make their way to the lifeboats due to confusion, locked gates, and lack of communication. In the chaos, many lifeboats were launched with empty seats, and the grim reality set in. There were not enough lifeboats for everyone on board. The final hours, as the ship began to sink by the bow, the stern of the Titanic rose out of the water, creating a dramatic and terrifying sight. Survivors recalled the ship's lights flickering and then going dark as the generators failed. At 2:18 a.m., the Titanic broke in two. The bow section quickly disappeared beneath the waves, while the stern hung in the water for a few moments before sinking vertically into the ocean. The entire ship had disappeared by 2:20 a.m. For those still aboard the Titanic as she sank, survival became nearly impossible. The water temperature was 28 degrees Fahrenheit, -2 degrees Celsius, well below freezing. Hypothermia set in within minutes for those in the water, and the majority of those who did not make it into lifeboats succumbed to the freezing water. The rescue. The RMS Carpathia, a ship that had responded to the Titanic's distress signals, arrived at the scene at 4 a.m., nearly 2 hours after the Titanic had gone under. The Carpathia rescued the 705 survivors from the lifeboats. For the rest, including over 1,500 passengers and crew, the icy waters of the North Atlantic became their final resting place. Aftermath and legacy. The sinking of the Titanic shocked the world. Inquiries were held in both the United States and Britain to determine what went wrong. The lack of sufficient lifeboats, the ship's excessive speed through iceberg-laden waters, and the delayed response to the iceberg warnings were all cited as contributing factors to the disaster. These inquiries led to significant changes in maritime law, including the requirement that ships carry enough lifeboats for all passengers, conduct regular lifeboat drills, and maintain 24-hour radio communication. The Titanic disaster also left an indelible mark on popular culture. It has been the subject of countless books, documentaries, and films, most notably James Cameron's 1997 film, Titanic, which brought the story to a new generation of audiences. The tragedy of the Titanic continues to capture the public imagination as a cautionary tale about human hubris and the limits of technology. Stories of those on board beyond the ship itself, the personal stories of the passengers, have added layers of intrigue and heartbreak to the Titanic legend. Some of the world's wealthiest individuals, like John Jacob Astor IV, perished, while others, such as Molly Brown, became legends in their own right for their heroic efforts to help others survive. There were also tales of unimaginable loss among families in third class. Whole families traveling to America in hopes of a better life were wiped out in the disaster. At the same time, there were stories of bravery, such as the band that played on as the ship went down, offering a final comfort to those still aboard. Conclusion. The sinking of the RMS Titanic remains one of the most tragic and fascinating events in history. It serves as a reminder of the fragility of life and the hubris of believing that anything, even a ship like Titanic, could be truly unsinkable. Today, more than a century later, the Titanic's story lives on, its wreck lying 12,500 feet beneath the surface of the ocean, a testament to the lives lost and the lessons learned on that fateful night in 1912.